So we'll talk a bit about Lustre today and about Lustre in the future. So as Paul said, we have acquired the Lustre development and support team from Intel. And I'll go briefly through the rationale behind it. So, we have been working with Lustre for 20 years. We have been around, we know, we have worked with the Lustre team. We have built up our own internal capability. But we want to do better, so we want to improve support for our users. We want to improve usability and customer experience with the file system. We want to broaden the market for Lustre, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And this is something that is already happening. It's actually happening in a much bigger way than you would think. We want to bring new features to customers, and we want to do so faster. And we want to provide the existing Lustre customers with a path to the future so that they can use their existing capabilities in a broader way for more applications, for more environments than is the case today. And by doing so, yes, we invest into the future of the high-performance computing market. Now, what are we going to do with this? So before I get to that, just let me talk briefly about the status of the acquisition and where we are today. So the acquisition has completed by June 15. And in order to ensure continuity, we have set up a new division within DDN that we call the Whamcloud Division, honoring the original name of Whamcloud. We have already started with continuing support for existing customers and partners. We'll get to that in a moment. We will, of course, continue to provide support for third-party hardware. So we're not going to say, hey, now it's DDN, so we'll limit to DDN hardware only. Out of the existing Lustre customers, probably 25 to 30% is our DDN customers, but there is another 70% of customers who use all sorts of systems and hardware. So we will absolutely continue to provide support for those customers. We are engaging with the end user, the user organizations, especially OpenSFS, EOSFS. There has been a very tight relationship in many ways in terms of feature prioritization, in terms of roadmap development for the core Lustre capabilities and the Lustre team. So we will continue that, of course. And we will, in parallel, of course, also work towards enhancing the future roadmap. So this is kind of where we are today. There is a lot of work to do, of course. So the DDN Whamcloud Division, and I'll introduce you to two individuals that you probably know. Andreas Dilger, CTO. Andreas, maybe if you... Andreas has been in the community for a very long time, a Lustre developer since 1999, and is well known for being sort of the main person, maintainer behind ext4, but Andreas has also done a lot of work around CFS. So Andreas will be the CTO of the Whamcloud division, and Peter Jones is also here, who most of you should know. So if you are a Lustre customer, you will probably know Peter Jones, good or bad. So Peter has been well known in the community as really being the support manager for the core Lustre team for many, many years. So Peter Jones will be the engineering director for the team. Peter has been managing, give or take, the last 100 Lustre releases, almost 100. And he has been managing the team for the last couple of years. He's also involved in OpenSFS, and he will stay on board in that function and be our main interface with OpenSFS. So, as I said earlier, the infrastructure to support Lustre has already moved, so it's all accessible now under the old whamcloud.com URL. And this is actually a very important asset. So there is a lot of systems behind it. There are test systems at various levels of the development process. So all of that is already up and running, give or take. We're still working through some final details. So in the last 2 weeks, the team has done a lot of work to make sure that this transition from Intel to DDN is without issues to customers. And yes, we have had a couple of hours or maybe a day of downtime for some of the web infrastructure, but give or take, everything is up and running again, and the team is working on support. The Lustre team has been known for doing the core Lustre development and the core Lustre releases under a model that is called now the long-term stable releases. So Lustre 2.10 is the branch for the long-term stable releases. The last release went GA in May, is 2.10.4. And introduces support for Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7.5 servers and clients. The baseline timing for the next LTS releases is going to be decided in collaboration with the OpenSFS committee. And I'll hand over now to Peter Jones to give you a couple of slides on what is on the track in terms of core Lustre engineering. Peter.
Right, thank you. Yeah, so just to sort of expand slightly on that last point, with the LTS releases, we've made part of the practice of having these to ensure that those ran for a fairly lengthy period, at least 18 months, so that people knew that with those, if you standardize on those, that you can be guaranteed to get maintenance releases for a fairly long time before we switch to something else. So with the timing that 2.10 came out, the earliest we'd switch would be early next year. So we figure that keeping a decision fairly close to that time of when we would next make the switch, we'll make a more informed decision, knowing more precisely which features are going to be in the various candidates. So the last major feature release that came out back in April was the 2.11 release. So this had some, probably the marquee features in this release were data on MDT, which is an optimization for small file I/O. So basically you can define a threshold, and any file that's below that threshold in size will be stored on the metadata servers, metadata targets rather than the OSTs, which has benefits in terms of performance. And also FLR delayed resync basically is a mechanism where you can create replicas of files on different OSTs within the same namespace. And so there's work that can build on that in future releases. We'll see some more developments there. And the next thing we're working on building on that is going to be Erasure coding. Going on to 2.12, this is the release we're working on at the moment, and so that will finalize the content in the coming weeks. And this is building on 2.11. We've got some further work that's happening with the data on MDT, some more performance around that, more stability around that. Also, the DNE directory restriping. This basically allows you it's a usability option for DNE. So DNE's the ability to expand your metadata, and this basically allows you to migrate as you expand, be able to restripe to take advantage of that. Telnet Network Health is in 2.10. We had a new feature, multi-rail, which allowed you to have multiple network interfaces, and so the Telnet Network Health allows you to take it, basically if they encounter an issue on the network, that you will try one of the alternatives before you go into recovery. So again, that can be a performance improvement. And lazy size on MGT is actually work that the existing DDN Lustre engineering team are working on, and this will allow you to get a sort of good enough sort of read on your size of files. If the use case here driving this is if you'll have a policy engine where you're just trying to decide if a file is give me all the files that are above a terabyte in size. It doesn't matter the precise size. You just need a rough approximation to make those kind of decisions. And this was actually an interesting slide adding on to the point Robert made about different expansion of usage of Lustre from more traditional HPC space. This was from the annual OpenSFS survey we do every year, and this year we actually put a question in about asking people to characterize what they were doing with Lustre and their primary usage of Lustre. And people could take multiple options from here, but what was very interesting, we knew we had energy, a lot of people, meteorology, we expected those to be, a lot of people answering, but there was much higher life sciences than we expected, beyond what we anticipated. And also very interesting, the AI machine learning was very significant, numbers there. So, that's really showing that people are reflecting these changes and looking to use Lustre in new ways. And we saw that at LUG as well. We had the annual Lustre Users Group back in April, and the Uber Advanced Technology Group presented there about their usage of Lustre, being perhaps an example of one of this new class of customer. And so this is back to your slide.
Thank you, Peter. So now I just like to spend a couple of more minutes. So as Peter said, the reality of Lustre today is that it isn't just the classical HPC tightly coupled simulation world. There is a lot of Lustre in life sciences. There's a lot of people who have large data sets who use Lustre. So Lustre is no more just a scratch file system. It is really a technology that is broadly used in what I call research big data, as well as increasingly in enterprise big data. And at DDN, our largest customer is an AI customer that does autonomous vehicle research. So now I'd like to spend just a couple of more minutes to say where is the direction that we are going towards in future. So first of all, yes, SSDs are coming. We know that in a couple of years, all performance storage will be flash. And a couple of more years, all storage will probably be flash. There may still be a drive there somewhere, but this is coming. So it is important for the file system to be capable of using flash in the right way. Peter alluded to data on MDT with SSDs, which is a feature that will increase metadata performance, but especially it will allow us to accelerate small file workloads very significantly, because now I can put a piece of my file on an SSD pool directly on a cluster of metadata servers. So it's a very important feature that we are very excited about, that is coming to market in the next year. Beyond that, I can use already SSD pools today with file level replications in a reasonably transparent way. So I can build pools into the file system for accelerated performance with SSDs. And in future, and again, Peter hinted at that, we want sort of those file movements between pools, policy-driven, automated, intelligent. And we are absolutely working towards that goal. And finally, yes, all flash file systems. There is a couple of things that are important. So if you use flash and in all flash file systems, you want data reduction. Data reduction is becoming possible with CFS. Also, you want to make sure that your durability of your devices is what it needs to be. So using trim unmet commands from the file system to the storage device will be important. And yes, NVMe support at the management level is important. So we at DDN, we have built a system that does a couple of things like that. It is a system in a box, a 2U box that runs the Lustre services in virtual machines. It comes on a standard VM stack with Vert.io for easy deployment, management, monitoring, just as an example. We already talked a little bit about data management. If you start introducing pools in any storage environment, data management becomes more and more important. There is an HSM capability that has been in Lustre for a long time. There is Hewlett-Packard DMF as an example of a working solution. There is an Atempo solution that will be coming. We will take this beyond just the archive. So there is a project called the Persistent Client Cache that will reverse the HSM functionality and put data from the file system on a local device to accelerate it for certain workflows. Relies on the same HSM mechanism. And again, having a policy engine to do all those data movements will become more and more important. Lustre and Cloud, just very briefly, Lustre and Cloud exists today, and it is actually a revenue-generating activity for the Whamcloud division, quite important. So you can go on Amazon and spin up your Lustre instance, and people do it, and they do it mostly for enterprise applications like SaaS analytics. Works really, really nice. It's easy to set up. It is supported through an expert team. And there is capability to export or import data through an S3 interface. Now we can take that towards a future where Lustre becomes part of more of a hybrid cloud world. Again, there is a lot of work to do, but yes, HPC workloads in future and AI workloads will have a cloud component. So it is important that your storage environment is capable of supporting that. Of course, it's one advantage of not being Intel is that we can tell you that there is going to be broad CPU support. So there is a system, again, by our partner Hewlett-Packard. That's a large ARM system. It's in the national laboratories that will also run a Lustre file system. We will announce at DDN very soon a large win together with IBM at an oil and gas company that will run Lustre on Power. So yes, we want Lustre to be versatile and capable of supporting all sorts of networks as well as all sorts of CPUs. Finally, since this is a DDN User Group, we have a product called Exascaler, which is a packaged solution for Lustre. So we are about to release Exascaler 4.0, which is Lustre 2.10. You all know that we are always a bit conservative. We don't go with the latest version. We go what we think is the best version for you as a customer. We spend a couple of months of testing. There is also the integrated manager for Lustre. So we have subtly changed the name here from Intel to integrated. That has been released in version 4 in October 2017. And is now a management product that is quite mature and very versatile, actually. So now, what are we going to do with those two different approaches? Yes, in future, we are looking towards a more integrated approach, where those two will converge over time into one management environment for Lustre that will be available for different types of hardware, with hardware plugins and things like that. With that, I'll conclude my talk here, but I would like to point you to a couple of events. So there is the Lustre BOF here at ISC tomorrow at 2:45 in the Piccolo room. There is the LAD workshop coming that you probably know in September in Paris, organized by CEA. We are going to have regional LAD meetings in China in October, as well as in Japan in the same week. There is a Lustre BOF planned together with SFS in SC18 in Dallas. And then there may be a regional LAG in Australia in December. With that, I'll conclude my talk here. Do we have time for a quick question, James?
One question. Who has it?
Maybe a little bit nasty one. How is your position changing towards GPFS with your acquisition of Lustre?
It's not changing at all. In fact, we will probably add additional software layers over time. So we have always been supporting various kinds of SDDNs file systems because we recognize that one file system does not necessarily provide a solution for all problems. And you will probably see us to add software solutions over time rather than reduce software solutions. This is also the reason why we will sort of run this as a semi-independent division, or eventually a subsidiary of DDN, as opposed to say, oh, all of DDN now becomes Lustre and all of Lustre becomes DDN. So we recognize that those things are different. So we will continue our work with GPFS for sure, yes.
We'll have a few more time for questions at the end before we break. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.